Hey guys, this is IXRollOutIX with LEGO Gundam Build Fighters, Build Burning Gundam. Of course, I heavily based this guy off of the Age 1 normal I built just about 2 years ago. The problem with the Age is that I built the torso first, and then everything else came later. Using the Age as reference, I was able to more fully realize a final product for the build burning before I started building it. I was also able to implement a lot of ideas that maybe I wanted to fit into the Age initially, but couldn't find room for. Namely, a lot more articulation, which goes a long way for a hand-to-hand combat mobile suit. We'll take a look at the construction, starting from the bottom up. The Age 1 Normal's ankles were overcomplicated. I tried making them look more armored, but it ended up being a lot more fiddly. Here, they're just T-joints. It's a lot more simple, it's a lot more solid, and it's a little bit inaccurate. Now, the build burning is supposed to have some dark gray details on top of its feet, but I couldn't find an effective way of adding that. Evidently, neither could the model kit designers, because on the high-grade kit, that detail is a sticker. Now, the ankles pretty much work the same way as the Age. This can slide down, you can tilt, you can rotate. No forward and back movement, but I think that's much less important. The knees have the translucent blue on them, and that's a little bit inaccurate as well, but it's simple and it's stylized and it works. Towards the back, I actually could have made things a bit more accurate, but I decided not to. I could have made this section white, I could have moved the red down here, made this black, and then had this section up here at the knee be completely black. Would have looked a bit more accurate. The only problem there is that this clip piece would show through to the front. Now, that's not a problem for a lot of people, but I like very blocky color schemes, and that being black would break things up a little bit too much for my liking. It's not inaccurate because I couldn't make it accurate, it's inaccurate for stylistic reasons. As for the upper legs, I did extend the thighs. You saw earlier that this guy was much bigger than the Age, and this is one of the main reasons why. While the build burning has a lot of side skirt armor, it's very minimal as far as front skirts and back skirts. This let me do something that I actually really wanted to do on the Age, but couldn't because of how bulky the front skirts were. You can see that these are attached down below rather than up above, so that they can slide down and get out of the way if I say turn the torso here and bring the leg up, so you have this whole range. Does look a little bit awkward there, but not too bad. The same can be said for these side skirts. They're just attached via one clip, so they can slide down and get out of the way when you're moving the leg off to the side. There's also a little bit of give here, so that if you rotate the leg just like that, they'll get out of the way as well. I feel that this whole hip setup works a lot better for this guy than it did for the Age, just because, well, it can make use of all of the movement that the faucet pieces provide without anything getting in the way. The lower arm is pretty simple. It uses the same wrist technique that I used for the Age and the Gaffran, with the old thinner style clip fitting into the back of a headlight brick. It allows some tilt up and down and forward and back. You also have the cheese slope on the end here, which you can bring around like this to give off the illusion that his hand is in some different positions for battle stances and things. Now, it does have a little bit of red on the side here, of course, but it also has some translucent blue. This, once again, is a little inaccurate. There's supposed to be like a white divider between two blue sections here, and I played around with using some rubber band to do that, but I just didn't like the way it looked, so I left it like this. Doesn't look too bad though. At least there is some translucent blue on his elbow. The elbow does bend 90 degrees, and that's about it. Things are a bit more exciting in the upper arm. Unfortunately, the shoulder attaches pretty far down on the torso, meaning that if you bring this around, it does look a little bit weird. However, you'll notice that it's attached with a robot hand and a pneumatic T, meaning that you can slide this out and actually tilt the shoulder forward, which is really cool. You can also bring it out a little bit further on that T-joint, but it does create a little bit of a gap there. However, if you bring the arm around and then tilt it the opposite way, it can help make the shoulder look a little bit less awkward, but not by a whole lot. To get the arm any further out, you do have to slide it down here on this little wrench piece, and then you can bring it out over the shoulder armor, which isn't half bad. Of course, you have a rotation here, and I do really like the way the shoulder armor ended up looking. It's not perfect, but you do have the red there, you have the vent there, and the white piece that attaches just like that. Towards the front, the torso looks pretty well. There are a couple of gaps, namely this one here towards the bottom, which is a little bit unsightly, but it's not too bad and most of the details are there. Now, some of the connections are a little bit strange, especially some of the angles. It almost looks rickety, like maybe it doesn't hold together very well. On the contrary, it holds together extremely well. It's very solid and very dense. Towards the back, you have the simple backpack, and a couple of jumper plates here make up the thrusters. Personally, the absolute worst part about the Age was the lack of neck articulation, so I definitely wanted to change that with this guy. The head is pretty much exactly the same, the only difference being the color of V-fin and the added V-fin towards the top using a little bit of flex tube. While I really like this head design, it does attach to the neck pretty far back, meaning the head sits pretty far forward. Unfortunately, it covers up this yellow accent a bit more than it should. Now, the head attaches in the same way the Gaffran's head attached, with this wrench and this robot hand. It sits pretty far down into the chest, but unfortunately not quite far enough. The neck is a little bit long and does look a little bit awkward in some positions, especially when you bring the head back. That paired with how far back it sits, it just doesn't look good at all. But it does add a lot of articulation. You can tilt it, you can bring it up and down, you can rotate it. It basically works like either a universal joint or a ball joint, and it adds so much expression to this guy that the Age just didn't have. For the most part, this is a completely unarmed Gundam, but it does have some swappable effect parts. First, it can go into burning mode. Basically, all of these translucent blue parts turn orange, and that is simple enough. Just swap the knees, swap the elbows, and then swap the shoulders. These are just attached with jumper plates up here, and it is simple enough. Personally, I don't quite like this look as much. I think the blue is very striking and the orange isn't quite as, but it's cool to be able to do. To top it off, he gets a ring of flame on his back. I just linked some fire pieces together here, and they attach to the backpack with some standard vertical clips. And I think it works really, really well for this situation. Just like that. So there is the Build Burning Gundam in burning mode. I also made a little flame effect part here that can attach to his hand. Basically, you just replace the cheese slope here for this. Just like that. There's also a little bit of spin on it too, which is a really cool effect. Of course, like this, you can use it for several Jengen House school punching techniques. Or you can attach it to the bottom of his foot and use it for the kicking ones. Last but not least, I really didn't want to make a transforming winning Gundam, but I did want to make the winning knuckle for the build burning, so I did. It doesn't transform, but I think it looks pretty good. You got all of the colors, most of the details. The thumb attaches to the skirt armor as it should, and it doesn't move at all. It's just a big, solid chunk of Lego, and I think it gets the job done. Could maybe look a little bit better from the bottom, though. At the back, you can see there's a headlight brick, and basically you just replace the hand. Now, you can imagine that this is pretty heavy. Lego is a very dense plastic, much heavier than Gunpla, so there are some weight issues from time to time in certain poses, but if you have him in just a standard punching pose, it should be fine, and as I said before, it gets the job done. Overall, I think this guy turned out really well for his scale. If nothing else, in my opinion, he's a big improvement over the Age 1 normal. Now, I know everybody will be asking if I'm going to build the other two members of Team Tri-Fighters. I already said I really didn't want to make the winning Gundam. But I had pondered the idea of maybe making the Lightning Gundam, and similar to how I did the winning Knuckle here, make his upgrades non-transformable as well, and then maybe just make a non-transformable winning Gundam Core Fighter. Will that actually ever happen? I don't know. No promises, but that was an idea. So, that is about it, guys, and this is IXRollOutIX, signing off.